for most awkward boner you've ever witnessed. I lived abroad in Germany for a few years, an American, and I went to this super famous haunted house called Berg Frankenstein. What you should know is this place was not a haunted house the way we know them in the US. People aren't happy in Europe like they are in Old Glory. So instead of there being a basic course for people to roam that have plam gads and a few workers to jump at you and scream, this haunted house had hundreds of workers, made up to the nines in prosthetics, and their only instruction was to roam this gigantic centuries-old castle and do whatever they wanted to scare the crap out of passerby. I'm talking crap that would have never flown in America. I got backed into corners, scooped up, chained to walls, locked in a coffin, but all of that held no candle to the infamous torture chamber. The torture chamber was the only feature that sort of resembled traditional American haunted houses, in the fact that it had a gigantic line. Now, I've been living in Europe long enough to know what a stereotypical American tourist looked like. And that's exactly what was in front of me. A gaggle of college kids, frat boys by the sound of it, trying to scare the squealing girls they dragged along by grabbing their sides, yodeling loudly in English, and probably oblivious to the fact that most of the people surrounding them spoke English as a second language, so they caught every rude jab and tasteless joke. There's one guy in particular who is louder and more obnoxious than the rest, and that seems to be the leader. This guy keeps loudly lamenting about how lame and boring this haunted house is. They got a lot of eye rolls. The line crawls along and finally a group of stern-looking zombified knights come to fetch the next group, and I get corralled into the dungeon with a large chunk of the other people waiting, including the frat group. We are arranged into some stands that face a classic torture setup, with a table with metal chains, one of those torture-will-looking things, a bunch of ominous-looking instruments, and at the forefront a pyramid head-looking dude with a whip. One of the knights asks if there are any volunteers, in German. No one speaks up. That is, until the American buttholes work out what he said and up strolls the leader of the pack, Butthole General, cocking an eyebrow and waving his fist in the air like Rocky or some crap. And he volunteered. The first thing they did was strap him to the table. Then Pyramid Head steps up to begin the torture games, starting out nicely by pinching at his skin with some pliers, aiding on the audience to participate, asking where he should go next. The audience slowly got more into it, howling instructions, crowing with glee at the sound of his squeals. The confidence of Butthole General slowly began to drain, and the standard civility of social norms began to ebb away into something much more animalistic. Pyramid Head lifts up the man's shirt, plucking a piece of ice from a bucket, holding it in the air for us to see. The crowd roars in approval. He lowers the ice onto the poor guy's chest, dragging trails all over. The guy pops a boner. It was clear as day in his obnoxious basketball shorts, and I'm mortified. He's mortified too. Face bright red, staring at the ceiling and not meeting anyone's eye. I expect everyone to just awkwardly ignore it. Pyramid Head stops in his tracks. He points to the tent. The room explodes, howls of devilish glee ringing up and down the stone walls, people stomping in the stands, knees buckling with laughter, everyone pointing at the forbidden boner. Pyramid Head picks up the ice bucket and dumps the remainder of ice and freezing water into his shorts. The agonized moans of the poor American are drowned out in the savage screams of ecstasy. They twist his nipples a few more times with various tools, and then Pyramid Head finishes his act by chaining Butthole General to the wheel, taking him around for a spin, the room chanting and jeering all the way. The boy gets unchained and is permitted to shuffle to his seat, raucous cheers and clapping following his beet red face all the way back to his now very silent group. I have never been more uncomfortable in all of my life.